The chamber exploded into chaos. The queen's personal guards came at them from every direction. These were not like the drones they had faced before. These were elite warriors, faster, stronger, more intelligent. Each one had been grown specifically to protect their mother, and they fought with a fury that matched the humans' own. Lieutenant Tiwu was the first to fall. A guard's blade caught him across the chest, cutting through his armor like paper. He went down hard, blood pooling beneath him. But even as he fell, he kept firing, taking 3 guards with him before his weapon finally slipped from his fingers. The Private Hana screamed his name, but there was no time to mourn. The battle was everywhere, and stopping meant dying. Captain Yuna fought like something out of legend. Her movements were a blur of violence and precision. She had trained for this moment her entire life, and now all that training poured out of her in a dance of death. Guards fell before her, one after another, but more always came. Dr. Sumamin moved through the chaos with a different purpose. She had one job and nothing would stop her from completing it. The container on her back held the neurotoxin, the weapon that would end this war. She just needed to reach the Queen's central cortex. The Queen watched the battle with growing surprise. She had expected the humans to break, to flee, to beg for mercy. That was what prey did, but these creatures did not run. They did not beg. Even as their numbers dwindled, even as their blood stained the floor of her chamber, they kept fighting. What are you? The queen demanded, her mental voice thundering through the room. Why do you not fear deaths? Sergeant Yi answered. Even as he fought with one arm, his body covered in wounds that should have killed him long ago. We fear death, he grunted, smashing a guard's head against the wall. We just hate losing more. The queen reached out with her mind, trying to touch the thoughts of these strange creatures. She had consumed 100 species, absorbed their memories, their knowledge, their essence. She knew how minds worked. She knew how to break them. But when she touched Captain Yuna's mind, she recoiled in horror. The humans' thoughts were chaos, beautiful, terrible chaos. There were memories of love and war mixed together, moments of kindness followed by moments of violence. There was art and destruction, creation and devastation. There was a mother holding a child, and there was a soldier holding a weapon. There was no separation between the light and the dark. They existed together, inseparable. And beneath it all, there was something the queen had never encountered before. A burning, unquenchable fire. A refusal to surrender that went beyond logic, beyond survival instinct, beyond anything the queen could understand. "Oh, what is this?" she screamed. What is this thing inside you? Yuna smiled, blood running down her face. We call it many things: stubbornness, defiance, spite. She took another step forward, fighting through the guards that stood between her and the queen. Our ancestors looked at a universe that wanted them dead and they said no. They refused, and we have been refusing ever since. The queen tried to pull back, to retreat into the depths of her ancient consciousness. But there was nowhere to go. Her body was the chamber, and the chamber was filled with humans. Dr. Sumamin had reached the central cortex. It was a pulsing mass of neural tissue, the brain that controlled everything. The queen, the drones, the entire hive. She pulled the neurotoxin container from her back and prepared to deploy it. Stop, the queen commanded. I will give you anything: power, knowledge, worlds. I have consumed civilizations that possessed secrets beyond your comprehension. I will share them with you. Just stop. Yuna stood before the queen now, barely standing, her body broken in a dozen places. The other survivors gathered beside her. Hana, still carrying her communications equipment. Yi, somehow still alive despite his wounds. Sumin, her hand on the toxin release. Only 12 humans remained from the original 30. You do not understand, Yuna said softly. We did not come here for power. We did not come here for knowledge. We came because someone asked for help. Someone was in danger and they called out into the darkness, hoping anyone would answer. The prey called you, the queen said, confusion filling her ancient voice. Why would you die for prey? Because that is what we do. Yuna stepped forward, placing her hand on the cortex. We protect the weak. We fight for strangers. We throw ourselves into impossible situations because the alternative is to watch innocent people die. And we cannot do that. We will not do that. So she looked back at Sumamin and nodded. The universe is cold and dark and does not care whether we live or die. Yuna continued, her voice growing quieter. So we have to care for each other. That is what makes us human. Not our strength, not our technology, not our stubbornness, our compassion. Sumamin triggered the release. The neurotoxin flooded into the cortex, spreading through the queen's neural network like fire through dry grass. The queen screamed, her mental voice shattering into 1,000 pieces. Throughout the hive ship, drones collapsed. Throughout the fleet, attacking vessels went dark. The queen's eyes began to dim. Her great body trembled and fell still. What are you? She whispered one final time. Captain Yuna leaned close, her voice barely a whisper. We are the species that looked at extinction and told it to wait. We are the creatures who came down from the trees and conquered a world that wanted us dead. We are the monsters your ancestors should have warned you about. She paused and her voice softened. But we are also the species that will reach out a hand to those in need. We are the creatures who will cross galaxies to answer a cry for help. We are the hope of those who have none left. So the queen's light faded completely, and with her death the hollow died. Far away, in the command center of the Velan flagship, Ambassador Riva watched the holographic display in disbelief. The drone ships were drifting, lifeless. The great hive ship was dark and silent. The communications channels were filled with static where there had once been the constant hum of the Hollow's collective mind. Oh, they did it, she whispered. Oh, the humans actually did it. 6 months later, the Velan Confederacy began to rebuild. Human ships now patrolled the liberated sectors, protecting the recovering worlds from any threats that might emerge. But they were not conquerors. They asked for nothing in return. They simply helped, and when the help was no longer needed, they prepared to leave. An ambassador, Riva hosted a formal dinner to celebrate the new alliance between her people and humanity. The surviving members of the original team were there. Sergeant Yi, now with a mechanical arm replacing the one he had lost. Private Hana, promoted to lieutenant for her bravery. Dr. Sumin, already working on new projects to help the Velan people recover. Captain Yuna, somehow still looking exactly the same, as if the battle had left no mark on her at all. As after the formal speeches and toasts, Riva found a quiet moment to speak with Yuna alone. I must ask you something, Rudavas said. Something that has been bothering me since the day you arrived. Oh, ask. Well, why did you really come? Why did you risk everything for strangers you had never met? Yuna was quiet for a long moment. She looked out the observation window at the stars, those same stars that Riva had watched during the darkest days of her people's exile. Because you asked, Yuna said simply, and because we know what it is like to face extinction alone. Humans almost did not survive. Climate collapse, nuclear war, plagues, a dozen other disasters. We came so close to ending ourselves so many times, but we made it through because we refused to give up and because in the darkest moments we found ways to help each other. She turned back to Riva, and there was warmth in those predator eyes. The universe is vast and cold. It does not care about us, so we have to care about each other, even if we are different, especially if we are different. That is the lesson we learned. And that is why we will always answer when someone calls for help. Rivaz's 4 eyes blinked. The other species call you the most perilous beings in the galaxy. They are not wrong, Yuna admitted. We are dangerous. We are unpredictable. We are capable of terrible things. But being dangerous does not mean being cruel. It means having the power to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Oh, she raised her glass in the human gesture of celebration. To hope, she said. Riva raised her own glass, feeling something she had not felt in 300 cycles. Not just hope now, but certainty. Certainty that the universe was not as cold and dark as she had believed. Certainty that somewhere among the stars there were beings who would fight for strangers, die for principles, and reach out their hands across the void. To hope, she repeated, and across the galaxy, in every corner of Velan's space, her people began to believe in it once again. Though the humans had come as monsters, they had proven to be heroes. And perhaps Riva thought those two things were not as different as she had once believed. Perhaps the most perilous species was also the most precious. Or perhaps that was what it meant to be human. The news spread across both fleets like fire through dry grass. By morning, every human and every Kythrin knew what had happened. The translator had proposed to the Warlord. The small, ordinary human had claimed the most dangerous being in the galaxy as his future wife. Dagtiho woke up to 47 messages on his communication device. Most of them were from crewmates asking if it was true. A few were from people he had never met wishing him luck. One was from his mother back on Earth, demanding to know why she had to learn about her son's engagement from the news. He deleted all of them and buried his face in his pillow. A sudden knock on his door made him groan. Go away. The door opened anyway. Captain Yoon Hanna stepped inside, her face tight with worry. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray hair she refused to dye. She had commanded the horizon for 15 years, and Tiaho had never seen her look this stressed. "Oh, get up," she said. "We need to talk." Tiaho dragged himself out of bed. He was still wearing yesterday's clothes. He probably smelled terrible. He did not care. "Oh, Captain, I can explain. You proposed to an alien warlord while drunk at a diplomatic function." Hana crossed her arms. "What exactly is there to explain?" "I did not propose. I made a stupid comment. I did not know it meant anything to them." "Well, it does." Hana began packing the small room. "I have spent all night talking to the Catherine High Council. They take this very seriously, T-Ho. To them, courtship is sacred. It is tied to their religion, their history, their entire social structure. Dog Ho sat down heavily on his bed. Can they not just pretend it did not happen? Call it a misunderstanding. No, there were too many witnesses. If Vera dismisses your claim without the proper trials, she will look weak. Her enemies will use it against her. She could lose her position, maybe even her life. So my choices are to go through these trials or get her killed. Taiho put his head in his hands. This cannot be happening. Ahana stopped packing. She looked at him with something that might have been sympathy. There is more. The human alliance is watching this closely. If you fail and get executed, it could damage our relationship with the Kythrins. Years of diplomatic work destroyed because of one drunk translator. No pressure at all, Taiho muttered. I am not trying to add pressure. I am trying to make you understand how important this is. Hanana sat down beside him. You need to survive these trials, Tiho, not just for yourself, but for everyone. Dang Tiho looked up at her. How am I supposed to do that? I am not a soldier. I am not a warrior. I have never even been in a real fight. Then you will have to find another way. Hanana stood up again. The Kythrins respect strength, but they also respect cleverness. They value someone who can think, who can adapt. Use your brain, Tiho. It is the only weapon you have. As after the captain left, Tiho sat alone in his room for a long time. He thought about running. He could steal a shuttle, fly away, disappear into some far corner of the galaxy where no one had ever heard of the Kithrin Empire. But he knew that was impossible. The Kythrins would hunt him. They would find him. And then they would kill him slowly instead of quickly. No, he had to face this. A new message appeared on his device. It was from Vera. Come to my ship. We need to discuss the terms of your courtship. Dog Taiho stared at the message for a full minute. Then he stood up, changed his clothes, and walked toward his fate. The Kithrin flagship was called the Endless Storm. It was massive, nearly 3 times the size of the horizon. Its hull was covered in weapons and armor plating. It looked like a flying fortress designed by someone who really enjoyed war. Dagtiho's shuttle docked in a hangar filled with Kythrin soldiers. They watched him walk past, their golden eyes tracking his every move. Some of them whispered to each other in their own language. A few of them laughed. A guard led him through long corridors made of dark metal. The walls were decorated with trophies from conquered worlds. Weapons, flags, pieces of destroyed ships. Tiho tried not to look too closely at some of the more disturbing items. Finally, they reached a large door marked with Vera's personal symbol. The guard knocked once, then stepped aside. An editor called Vera's voice from within. Don Tiho took a deep breath and walked inside. The room was not what he expected. He had imagined something cold and military, full of weapons and battle plans. Instead, he found a comfortable living space with soft lighting and actual furniture. There were books on shelves, actual physical books. There were plants growing in pots by the window. There was art on the walls. Vera stood by a large viewing window looking out at the stars. She had removed her armor. Without it, she looked almost normal, still tall, still silver-skinned, still dangerous, but more like a person and less like a weapon. "Oh, you came," she said without turning around. "Oh, you did not give me much choice." There is always a choice." She turned to face him. In the soft light, her golden eyes seemed warmer somehow. "You could have run. Many males have tried to run from Catherine courtship." "Oh, what happened to them?" They died tired." A small smile crossed her face. "But you are here, that shows courage." Dr. Yeho laughed bitterly. "It shows stupidity. I am only here because running seemed like more work." Vera studied him for a long moment. Then she walked to a table and poured 2 glasses of something that was definitely not wine. She handed one to Tiho. "It is water," she said. "I thought you might want to stay clear-headed this time." He took the glass gratefully. "Thank you." They stood in silence for a moment, drinking their water and not looking at each other. Finally, Tayaho spoke. "Well, why did you not dismiss my claim? You could have called it a mistake, a translation error. Your counsel must have suggested it." Vera set down her glass. "They did, many times. They said it would be embarrassing to take a human's claim seriously. They said you were weak and worthless and would die in the first trial." They sound lovely." They are practical." Vera moved closer to him. "But I am curious, Kang Taiho. In 200 years of war and conquest, no male has ever looked at me and seen anything but a monster. They see my scars and my reputation and they run away. But you," she tilted her head, "you looked at me and called me cute." Taiho felt his face grow warm. "I was very drunk." Or perhaps you saw something others do not." She was standing right in front of him now, close enough that he had to look up to meet her eyes. "I want to know which one it was." So this is all because you are curious." "Is that so strange? Vera's voice softened. I have conquered worlds, Tiho. I have everything I could ever want. Power, respect, fear, but no one has ever wanted me, not the real me. Only my title, my strength, my empire. Then for a moment, Tiho forgot to be afraid. He saw something in her eyes that he recognized. Loneliness. The same loneliness he felt every night in his small room, surrounded by stars but far from anything like home. There are the trials, he said quietly. What do I have to do? The Vera stepped back and the moment passed. She was the warlord again, cold and commanding. There are three trials: combat to test your strength, the hunt to test your survival, and strategy to test your mind. She paused. Most suitors die in the first trial. Oh, wonderful. But you are different. She looked at him with those glowing golden eyes. You are human. Your species does things no other species does. You survive when you should die. You adapt when you should fail. I want to see if the stories are true. Doug Ho finished his water and set down the glass. And if I pass all three trials, what happens then? The Vera smiled. It was not a threatening smile this time. It was almost warm. Then I become your cute wife. Despite everything, Tiho found himself smiling back. I guess I better not die then. No, Vera agreed. That would be disappointing. Yeah, she walked him back to the hangar herself. The soldiers watched them pass, their expressions confused. The warlord never escorted anyone personally. And at the shuttle door, Vera stopped. The first trial begins in 3 days. Use the time to prepare. Many advices. She thought for a moment. Do not try to be Catherine. You will never be as strong or as fast as us. But you are human. Be human. That is the only chance you have. Ho nodded and stepped into the shuttle. As the door closed behind him, he heard Vera speak one more time. Good luck, little human. I hope you survive. I find myself wanting to know what happens next. So the shuttle flew back to the horizon, and Tiho sat alone in the dark, thinking about everything that had happened. The 3 days, 3 trials, one impossible task. Humans. Oh, he did not know what that meant yet, but he had 3 days to figure it out. The arena was packed with Catherines. Thousands of silver-skinned warriors filled the seats, their golden eyes fixed on the fighting floor below. They had come from every ship in the fleet to watch the spectacle. The human who had claimed their warlord was about to face his first trial. Ho stood in the center of the arena, feeling very small and very alone. He wore simple combat clothes that the Catherines had given him. In his hand, he held a short metal staff. It was the only weapon he had been allowed. Across from him stood his opponent, a Kithrin warrior named Gorek. He was 7 feet tall with arms as thick as tree trunks. His silver skin was covered in battle scars, and he carried a weapon that looked like a cross between an axe and a hammer. He was grinning. This will be quick," Gorek said. "I almost feel bad." Dagtiho did not respond. He was too busy trying not to throw up. Is in the royal box above the arena, Vera sat watching. Her face showed nothing, but her eyes never left Tiho. Beside her, her advisors whispered to each other, placing bets on how many seconds the human would last. Though the signal horn sounded, the trial had begun. Gorek charged immediately. He moved faster than something that big should be able to move. His weapon swung toward Tiho's head with enough force to crush a boulder. Tiho dodged, barely. The weapon passed so close that he felt the wind of it against his face. He stumbled back, his heart pounding. Fast for a human, Gorek admitted. But you cannot dodge forever. Oh, he attacked again and again and again. Dagtiho did not try to fight back. He could not. One hit from that weapon would break every bone in his body. So he did the only thing he could do. He dodged. He rolled. He ran. The crowd began to laugh. This was not a fight. This was a chase. The human was running around the arena like a scared animal while the warrior chased him. But Tiho had a plan. It was not a good plan. It was barely a plan at all. But it was based on something Captain Hana had told him, something about being humans. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest. They could not fly or breathe underwater or survive in extreme temperatures. But humans had one thing that most other species did not. Endurance. Dagtiho kept running, he kept dodging. He let Gorek chase him around the arena while the crowd laughed and jeered. 5 minutes passed, then 10, then 20. Gorek was getting slower. Catherines were built for power, not stamina. Their bodies were designed for short, violent battles. They hit hard and won fast. They were not designed for long fights. But humans were. Humans had evolved on a planet where they hunted by chasing animals until those animals collapsed from exhaustion. Humans could run for hours without stopping. Humans could keep going long after other species gave up. As after 30 minutes, Gorek was breathing hard. His attacks were slower, clumsier. Sweat poured down his silver skin. Stand still, he growled. Fight me like a warrior. No, Taiho said simply. He was tired too, but not nearly as tired as Gorek. I think I will just keep doing this. For 40 minutes, Gorek was staggering, his weapon dragged on the ground. His forearms hung limp at his sides. Though the crowd had stopped laughing, they watched in confused silence as their champion struggled to stay on his feet. For 50 minutes, Gorek fell to his knees. He tried to lift his weapon but could not. He looked up at Tiho with exhausted eyes. What are you? Tiho stood over him, still breathing hard but still standing. I am human. We do not give up. Oh, he tapped his staff against Gorek's shoulder. A light touch. A symbolic victory. Though the crowd erupted, not in anger but in shock. The human had won, not through strength or speed, but through pure, stubborn endurance. In the royal box, Vera was smiling. Though the second trial was harder. They dropped Tiho on a death world called Vorn. It was a planet covered in jungles filled with predators. The air was thick and hot. The plants had thorns that could pierce metal. Everything on this planet wanted to kill him. His task was simple. Survive for 7 days and bring back proof of a kill. Though they gave him a knife and nothing else. Though the first 3 days were hell, Tiho spent most of his time hiding. He climbed trees to escape ground predators. He buried himself in mud to hide his scent. He ate insects and drank water from leaves. It was disgusting, but it kept him alive. On the fourth day, he found tracks, large tracks. They belonged to a predator called a Vorn Shadow. It was basically a cat the size of a car with 6 legs and teeth like swords. The Keithrans considered it the ultimate prey. Dantiho followed the tracks, not because he wanted to fight the creature. He had a different idea. He found the Shadow's den on the 5th day. It was inside a cave hidden behind a waterfall. Inside, he found the creature lying on its side, breathing weakly. It was injured. Deep wounds covered its flank, probably from a fight with another predator. And Zenny Kythrin would have killed it. An easy victory over a weakened enemy. Dog Taiho put down his knife. He spent the next 2 days caring for the creature. He cleaned its wounds with water from the falls. He caught small animals and brought them to it. He talked to it in a soft voice, even though it probably could not understand him. And at first, the shadows snarled at him every time he came close. But slowly, day by day, it began to accept his presence. By the end of the second day, it let him touch its fur. When the pickup ship arrived on the seventh day, the Kithrin soldiers expected to find either a dead human or a human with a trophy. What they found was Tiho walking out of the jungle, with a Vorn shadow following behind him like a loyal pet. I did not kill it, Tiho announced. I tamed it. I think that is more impressive. The soldiers had no idea what to do. They called Vera. And an hour later, the warlord's personal shuttle landed. Vera stepped out and stared at the human and his new companion. The shadow was rubbing its massive head against Tiaho's shoulder while he scratched behind its ears. Oh, your species does not kill threats, Vera said slowly. You make them allies. Well, we are social creatures, Teho replied with a tired smile. It is kind of our thing. For a long moment, Vera said nothing. Then she laughed. It was a genuine laugh, warm and surprised. You have passed the second trial. The council will not like it, but the rules did not specify what kind of proof was needed. She looked at the shadow with something like wonder. What will you do with it? Keep it, I think. Every warlord's future husband needs a pet. The Vera laughed again. I am beginning to like you, Kang Taeho. Now, the third trial was different from the others. No physical challenges, no survival tests. This one was pure strategy. They put Tiho in a simulation room with a holographic war game. He commanded a small fleet against a much larger enemy force. The Kythrins expected him to fight bravely and lose honorably. He did not fight at all. Instead, Tiho spent his first moves sending communications to the enemy fleet. He researched their commanders. He found out about their grievances, their complaints, their grudges. He discovered that several captains were unhappy with their current leadership. He learned that many soldiers felt underpaid and underappreciated. So then he started talking to them. By the end of the simulation, Tiho had not won a single battle, but he had convinced half the enemy fleet to defect to his side. He had negotiated treaties with 3 different factions. He had turned enemies into allies through nothing but words. Though the Cathedran Council watched in disturbed silence. Now, this is not war, one of them said. This is politics. War is just politics with weapons, Teho replied. And politics is just understanding what people want and helping them get it. The council argued for hours about whether this counted as passing the trial. Some said he had cheated. Others said he had shown cowardice. A few quietly admitted that his approach was brilliant. Oh, in the end, Vera made the decision. Well, he won, she said simply. The objective was to defeat the enemy. He defeated them without losing a single ship. That is not cowardice. That is genius. The council could not argue with their warlord. Dagtiho had passed all three trials. He had proven himself through endurance, compassion, and clever thinking. He had not beaten the Catherines at their own game. He had played a completely different game and won anyway. That night, the Kythrian fleet buzzed with discussion. The humans were strange. They did not fight like warriors. They did not think like warriors. They fought like something else entirely. Something that adapted and changed and turned enemies into friends. Though some of the Kythrins found this disturbing, others found it fascinating. Vivera found it beautiful. She sent Teho a message late that night. Just two words. Oh, well done, sis. Teho read the message and smiled. He was exhausted, covered in bruises, and he was pretty sure he still had jungle mud in places mud should not be. But he was alive. He had passed the trials. And somewhere on the Catherian flagship, a warlord was thinking about him. Maybe he thought as he drifted off to sleep. Maybe this would not end so badly after all. The 3 days had passed since the final trial. 3 days of silence from Vera. 3 days of Tiho wondering what would happen next. He had passed all the trials. That part was clear. The Catherine Council had officially declared him worthy, even if most of them looked unhappy about it. He was no longer in danger of execution. He was, technically speaking, engaged to the most powerful warlord in the galaxy. But what did that actually mean? Tiho lay in his room on the horizon, staring at the ceiling. His Vorn shadow, which he had named Bori, slept beside his bed. The massive predator had become surprisingly gentle, following Tiho everywhere like an oversized house cat. His communication device buzzed. A message from Vera. I come to my quarters tonight alone. Tiho read it 3 times. His heart started beating faster. Was this good, bad? Was she going to kill him after all? Was there some fourth trial he did not know about? I hate space, he muttered to Bori. Everything here is confusing. Bori opened one eye, yawned, and went back to sleep. That night, Tiho took a shuttle to the endless storm. The guards let him pass without a word. They knew who he was now. Everyone in both fleets knew who he was. The human who had passed the trials. The future husband of the warlord. He still was not used to the stairs. When he reached Vera's quarters, he hesitated outside the door. He had been here once before, right after the incident. He remembered the surprising warmth of the room, the books and plants that did not fit the image of a terrifying conqueror. Well, he knocked. And then enter came her voice. Otiho stepped inside and stopped. Vivera stood by the viewing window, her back to him, but she was not wearing her armor or her formal robes. She wore something simple and soft, almost like a dress. Her silver hair, usually pulled back tightly, hung loose down her back. Without her weapons and her war gear, she looked different. Smaller, more vulnerable. A dying star burned outside the window, casting orange and red light across the room. Vera's silver skin seemed to glow with its colors. Oh, you came, she said without turning around. Oh, you asked me to. I gave you an invitation, not an order. You could have ignored it. Dong Ho walked closer. After everything that has happened, you think I would ignore your invitation. Vivera finally turned. In the strange light, her golden eyes looked almost soft. There was something in her expression that Tio had never seen before. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. I have something to tell you, she said. Something I should have told you at the beginning. Tio waited. Vivera turned back to the window. She seemed to be looking for the right words. Finally, she spoke. When you made your drunken comment at the celebration, my advisors immediately told me to dismiss it. They said it was obviously a mistake. They said you had no idea what you were saying. They offered to have you quietly sent back to human space with your memory of the event erased. That was an option, Tio said, surprised. Yes, an easy option, a clean option. No one would have blamed me for taking it. Vera's voice grew quieter. But I did not take it. I chose to keep you, to put you through the trials, to see if you could survive. Oh, wise. Vivera was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. Because in 200 years of war and conquest, no one has ever looked at me and seen something worth loving. Dog Taiho felt something shift in his chest. He moved closer to her. Lavera. I have been a weapon my whole life, she continued. I was born to fight, raised to kill. My first battle was at the age of 12. By 20, I had conquered my first planet. By 50, I was supreme warlord. She laughed bitterly. Everyone fears me, everyone respects me, but no one has ever looked at me and thought, she would make a good partner, she would make a good wife. She turned to face him, her eyes were wet. Tio had not known Kythrins could cry. And then you, a drunk little human, looked at me and saw something different. You saw someone who could be cherished, someone who could be cute. She almost smiled at the word. It was probably the wine talking, I knew that, but I wanted so badly for it to be true. Dagteho stepped closer. He reached up and touched her arm. Her silver skin was warm under his fingers. It was not just the wine, he said quietly. I mean, the wine helped, but when I looked at you, I did see something. I saw someone powerful and frightening, yes, but I also saw someone alone, someone who maybe did not want to be alone anymore. Lavera stared at him. You do not know me. You have only known me for a few weeks. That is true, but I know loneliness. I have been floating in space for 3 years, surrounded by people, but never really connecting with any of them. I know what it looks like when someone is aching for something more. A tear rolled down Vera's silver cheek. You are very strange, Kang Taiho. So are you, Warlord. She laughed softly. It was a beautiful sound, warm and genuine and surprised. The final part of the courtship is my choice, she said. I must give you one last task. It can be anything. Something easy or something impossible. Many warlords throughout history have used this to get rid of unsuitable suitors without losing face. And what task will you give me? Vivera reached out and took his hand. Her four-fingered grip was gentle. Nothing, I give you no task, I simply ask. She hesitated. I ask if you want this, not because of politics or treaties or diplomatic relations, but truly, honestly, do you want me? Dagtiho looked up at her. The dying star painted her in shades of fire. Her golden eyes searched his face looking for truth. He thought about everything that had happened. The accidental proposal, the terror of the trials, the exhaustion and fear and constant threat of death. If someone had asked him a month ago if he wanted any of this, he would have laughed in their face. But standing here, holding her hand, looking into her eyes, he felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. When I first saw you at that celebration, he said slowly, I was terrified. You were everything I was not, powerful, fierce, dangerous. I thought you were a monster. Valvera's face flickered with pain. But then I got to know you, Tiho continued. I saw you laugh. I saw you be curious. I saw you standing by this window looking at the stars, and I realized you are not a monster. You are just a person. A lonely person who has never had anyone to share her life with. Oh, he squeezed her hand. I do not know if this will work. I do not know if a human and a Kithrin can actually be together. There will be problems, cultural differences, Political complications. Your council hates me. My government is confused. Nothing about this makes sense. The Vera nodded, her expression guarded. But Tiho said, I want to try. I want to see what happens when the galaxy's most feared warlord has someone on her side. Someone who sees her not as a weapon, but as a woman. Vavera's breath caught, her golden eyes filled with fresh tears. Oh, you mean that? I do. She moved toward him. Even without her armor, she was much taller than him. She had to lean down to bring her face close to his. Now, this will not be easy, she whispered. My life is war and politics and danger. You could get hurt. You could die. I nearly died 3 times in the last month, Teho pointed out. I think I am getting used to it. Vavera laughed again. Then slowly, carefully, she pressed her forehead against his. It was a Keithran gesture he would later learn, an intimate sign of trust and affection. Then we will do this together, she said. You and me against the galaxy. Oh, that sounds terrifying. Yes, she smiled, but also so exciting, I think. They stood like that for a long time, forehead to forehead, hand in hand, while the dying star burned outside the window. 2 lonely people who had found each other in the most unlikely way. Finally, Vera pulled back. There will be a ceremony, a formal bonding. The whole galaxy will be watching. Oh, I expected that. My people will judge you. Your people will be confused. I also so expected it. And I, Vera said, her voice growing softer, will try very hard to be a good wife, even though I have no idea how. Dante Ho grinned up at her. That makes 2 of us. I have no idea how to be a good husband to a warlord. Perhaps we will learn together. Perhaps we will. Vavera touched his face with one of her 4 hands. Her claws were sharp, but her touch was gentle. Thank you, she said quietly, for being drunk at that party, for making that stupid joke, for changing my life in ways I never expected. Ho leaned into her touch. Thank you for not killing me. I considered it. As I know, several times. I believe you. She laughed and he laughed with her. And outside the window, the dying star continued to burn. Somewhere in the galaxy, history was being written. The first human to pass the Cathrin trials. The first human to bond with a warlord. The beginning of something new and strange and wonderful. But in that moment, Tayaho did not think about history. He only thought about the woman in front of him and the futures they would build together. Well, whatever that future held. The bonding ceremony of Supreme Warlord Vera and Kang Ti-ho was the most watched event in galactic history. Ships from 100 different species gathered at the edge of Catherine space to witness it. News broadcasts carried the ceremony to every inhabited planet. Billions of beings watched a small human stand beside a towering alien conqueror and promise to spend their lives together. It was, as the human media called it, the wedding of the century. Dantiho stood at the altar in the great hall of the endless storm. He wore formal human wedding attire, a simple black suit that his mother had sent from Earth. His hands were shaking slightly. Behind him, Bori the Vorn Shadow sat watching, having been given the unofficial role of ring bearer. On the other side of the hall, doors opened and Vera entered. She wore ceremonial white, a flowing gown that covered her silver skin like snow on a mountain. Her forearms were adorned with golden bands marking her status. Her hair was arranged with crystals that caught the light. She looked powerful and beautiful and absolutely terrifying. She also looked nervous. As she walked toward him, Tiho could see her golden eyes darting around the room. Thousands of Catherines filled the seats. Hundreds of humans, dignitaries from species across the galaxy. Everyone was watching her. Well, when she reached his side, Tayaho reached up and took one of her hands. He squeezed gently. Oh, you look beautiful, he whispered. I feel ridiculous, she whispered back. This dress weighs more than my armor. Worth it, though. Your council looks like they swallowed something sour. Vera glanced at the row of Catherine advisors, all of whom wore expressions of barely hidden disapproval. A small smile crossed her face. Yes, that does make it worthwhile. Ambassador Park Yi-won stood before them, his datapad shaking in his hands. He was a senior diplomat from Earth, chosen to officiate because no one else wanted the pressure. He cleared his throat 3 times before he could speak. We gathered today, he began, his voice wavering, to witness the bonding of two individuals from different worlds, different cultures, different species. This union represents more than just a marriage. It represents hope. Hope that beings who were once strangers can learn to understand each other. Hope that differences can become strengths. Hope that love can cross any boundary. Dong Taiho looked up at Vera. She looked down at him. In her golden eyes, he saw everything he needed to see. Warlord Vera, Ambassador Park continued. Do you take Kang Teo as your bonded partner? Do you promise to share your life with him, to protect him, to stand beside him through whatever challenges may come? The Vera's voice rang clear and strong through the hall. I do. Kang Teo, do you take Warlord Vera as your bonded partner? Do you promise to share your life with her, to support her, to stand beside her through whatever challenges may come? Teo smiled. I do. Then, by the authority granted to me by the human alliance and recognized by the Cathrin Empire, I declare you bonded. You may now. Ambassador Park hesitated, clearly unsure what the appropriate Cathrin custom was. And seal your bond as you see fit. The Vera did not hesitate. She leaned down, cupped Teho's face in two of her hands, and kissed him. The hall erupted. Catherines roared their approval, stamping their feet in celebration. Humans clapped and cheered. Somewhere in the crowd, Teho's mother was crying happy tears while his father looked bewildered. When Vera pulled back, her eyes were shining. Was that acceptable? She asked. More than acceptable, Teho replied, slightly breathless. The celebration feast lasted for hours. Catherine and human food filled long tables. Music from both cultures played in strange but somehow harmonious combinations. Warriors who had spent decades fighting humans now sat beside them, sharing drinks and stories. Captain Hanna found Tio hiding in a corner, taking a break from the endless stream of congratulations. Oh, you actually did it, she said, shaking her head in disbelief. You actually married a warlord. As it was not really part of my life plan, Taiho admitted. But here we are. The diplomatic implications are enormous. Trade agreements, military alliances, cultural exchanges. You have changed the relationship between our species forever. Danteho watched Vera across the room. She was speaking with a group of human diplomats, her posture formal but her expression softer than it used to be. I did not do it for diplomatic implications, he said quietly. I did it because I love her. Hana was quiet for a moment, then she smiled. I know that is what makes it real. Later that night, Tio and Vera retired to their shared quarters. The room had been redesigned to accommodate both of their preferences. Human furniture beside Catherine, earth plants beside alien flowers, two cultures blending into one space. Vera removed her ceremonial gown with evident relief. Underneath, she wore a simple robe. She looked more comfortable already. That was exhausting, she said. I have fought in battles that were less tiring. You did well. Taiho loosened his tie. Your speech was beautiful. During the ceremony, Vera had given a speech. It had surprised everyone. I have taken worlds, she had said, her voice carrying across the silent hall. I have commanded millions. I have won every battle I have ever fought, but I have never been claimed, never been chosen, until a small, foolish human looked at me and saw not a warlord but a woman. He offered me something no conquest could provide, a place to belong. Several Catherines had cried, so had several humans. Tioho had cried the most. Now, in the quiet of their room, Vera sat beside him on the bed that had been custom made to fit her height. Are you happy? She asked, truly. Tioho looked at her. His wife, the supreme warlord of the Kythrin Empire, the Silver Death, the most feared being in the galaxy. Oh, yes, he said, I am happy. Even though your life will never be normal again, even though you will always be in danger, even though you married a monster. Taiho reached up and touched her face. You are not a monster, you are my wife, and I am happy. Vera closed her eyes and leaned into his touch. I still do not understand why you chose this. You could have run, you could have hidden, any sane person would have. Well, maybe I am not sane. Clearly not. He laughed. Or maybe I just saw something that others missed. Maybe I saw someone who needed to be loved and decided that I wanted to be the one to love her. Vera opened her eyes. They were wet again. All humans are very strange, she whispered. So you kept telling me. The 6 months passed. Tioho adjusted to his new life slowly. He learned Kythrian customs and helped Vera understand human ones. He sat in on diplomatic meetings and used his translation skills to smooth misunderstandings. He adopted 3 more Vorn shadows because apparently he could not stop making friends with dangerous predators. He also discovered that the galaxy's most feared warlord was a cuddler. One morning, Tioho woke to find Vera wrapped around him like an octopus guarding treasure. All 4 of her arms held him tight. Her face was buried in his hair. She was making soft, humming sounds in her sleep. Oh, Vera, he said gently, I need to breathe. No, her voice was muffled. You are warm. I am keeping you. I have a meeting in an hour. Cancel it. You are mine. Taiho smiled and relaxed into her embrace. The meeting could wait. Later that day, they stood together on the bridge of the endless storm, watching a beautiful nebula drift past. Vera's reputation had spread further than ever, but now the stories were different. She was still feared, still respected, still the most powerful warlord in the galaxy. But now people also talked about the human who had tamed her. The translator who had won her heart with nothing but patience and kindness. Oh, the galaxy is watching us, Vera said, waiting to see what we do next. Does that bother you? No, let them watch. She looked down at him. Let them see that the strongest warrior in the galaxy chose love over war. Let them see that a human and a Kithrin can build something beautiful together. Dante Ho leaned against her, feeling the steady warmth of her body. That is very poetic. I have been practicing. Human literature is full of such sentiments. Oh, you have been reading human literatures. I am trying to understand you better. She paused. Also, I like the romance novels. They are unrealistic but enjoyable. Dante Ho laughed so hard he almost fell over. The image of the supreme warlord reading romance novels was too perfect. I love you, he said when he recovered. Vera smiled. It was still rare for her to smile, but when she did, it transformed her face completely. I love you too, little human, even when you laugh at me. I was not laughing at you. I was laughing at the situation. That sounds like something a husband says when he is in trouble. Maybe, he grinned up at her. But you are still a cute wife. Vera groaned. I will never escape that phrase. Never. It is our origin story. She sighed dramatically, but she was still smiling. I suppose there are worse things to be remembered for. As outside the window, the nebula glowed with colors that had no names in any language. Stars burned in the distance. Somewhere out there, 100 different species lived their lives, unaware of the small moment of happiness happening on a Kithrin warship. But some of them knew. Some of them had heard the story, the drunk translator, the accidental proposal, the trials and the confession and the wedding that had changed everything. And they smiled too. Because humans were strange. They saw monsters and offered them homes. They faced impossible odds and found ways to win. They loved with a stubbornness that defied logic. Though they made the galaxy more interesting just by existing. Dante Ho, standing beside his alien wife, watching the stars drift by, thought about everything that had brought him here. The fear and the confusion and the moments when he had been certain he would die. While he would not change any of it. Well, what are you thinking? Vera asked. That I should get drunk and say stupid things more often. She laughed and pulled him closer. Oh, please do not. Too late. It is clearly my talent. Then I will keep you close to make sure you only say stupid things to me. Ho smiled. That sounds like a good plan. Though they stood together as the ship sailed through the stars, heading toward whatever adventure came next. A human and his alien wife. Up against the galaxy. Far forever.